Now the bull was one of the first sacred sacrificial animals amongst early religions. Itself was revered for its meat, its strength, reliability and resourcefulness, and as such many ancient gods and kings were depicted as bulls. Now this would also be included for titles. That would include bull in it. Now El Elyon, the head of the Canaanite pantheon and some Israelite factions, who was also a god of magic, a god of time, a god of mercy, and a god of magic. He was also depicted as a fertility god, though this could be taken from his wife Asherah. Now, he was also depicted as a bull, which could also be attributed to his fertility trait. Now, he was also depicted as a wise old man with a grey beard or white beard, as he was a god of wisdom. Now, this could also be what inspired the depictions of Zeus with a long grey beard or white beard. Now, some scholars also argue that El Elyon was attributed from the god Ptah, as both had the title the Great One and the Eternal One. Now, some followers of the Canaanite pantheon and even some Israelite factions would sacrifice bulls to Elyon, and this would be later in turn used for sacrificial worship towards Yahweh and Baal. Now, the Essenes, of which worship El Elyon, rejected sacrifice and thus would not sacrifice anything of flesh towards their god, but would rather do good deeds and vows of poverty and fasting as a means of worship. Hadad or Adad was a Sumerian god, a Babylonian god, and a Canaanite god, who was a god of warriors, storm, rain, and weather. Now, he was also sometimes depicted as a fertility god and was depicted as a bull. Now, he was also depicted as a warrior wearing a horned helmet holding a thunderbolt, and in turn could have also inspired the legends of Zeus. Now, some also argue that this deity inspired Yahweh or also Baal. Now, Baal could have also been this god Hadad, but a complete Canaanite re-influence and re-beginning, making it no longer a Sumerian influence, but now a Canaanite influence. Now, it's also argued that Hadad could have been the actual name for Baal, as Baal or Baal was also a title or could have been the title for lord or owner. Now, Hadad also had bulls sacrificed to him, and in the Sumerian legend was depicted as having a part to play with the world's flooding. Now let's discuss Baal or Baal, which is also argued to be a title meaning lord or owner, and could be the god Hadad, and as a means of not actually speaking his name being taboo, which could also be attributed to that of speaking Yahweh's name as a means of taboo, or being a sin. Now, this being said, Baal, who was a son of El and brother of Yahweh, and in some cases he was a son of Dagon. Now, he, like Yahweh, was a member of the Elohim, and Baal served his head patron god and father god, El Elyon, as a means of distributing justice, which was also a trait that was said to have belonged to Yahweh as well, or possibly belonged to Yahweh, and was most likely just stolen from Baal worship before mixing in their titles with El, as both Baal and Yahweh worshippers took El Elyon's titles and mixed them with said Baal and Yahweh. And this can also be found with Asherah, as both of these gods, who were said to be the children of this mother goddess, were later made the husband of this said mother goddess. Now, Baal was also depicted, like Yahweh and El Elyon, as a bull, and it's likely that both these depictions of Yahweh and Baal being a bull were taken from El Elyon worship. Now, Baal was also a warrior and storm god, and also a fertility god, though this could also be taken from his mother or wife Asherah. Now, he at times was also depicted with a horned crown and even holding a thunderbolt, which also goes into the theory that he could be Hadad or completely Hadad influenced. So let's go into the next subject. Now, Yahweh we're going to discuss was also a warrior and storm god and a weather god, who originally was a lesser deity and a son or adopted son of El Elyon. Now, there's also theories that Yahweh may not have been a Canaanite influence, but rather through trading with the local nomadic Arab population with the Sashu Canaanite people, they in turn borrowed Yahweh. But this is a theory. Now, Yahweh worship could also be first mentioned by the Egyptian records by the Sashu, which also worshipped their war god Yahweh, and they were tent-dwelling, nomadic, raiding people that would go out raiding or hiring out their services as mercenaries, or even just being bandits and brigands as recorded by the Egyptians as troublemakers. Now, Yahweh was also depicted as a bull, and also had bulls sacrificed to him, which is also ironic because Yahweh gets angry that the Israelites were also worshipping a bull because it wasn't his depiction of a bull. So here we have something interesting when regarding Yahweh worship, as the origins of Yahweh are actually unknown. We have theories, and whichever particular theory suits you best, well, there you go. Now, Yahweh also was influenced by El Elyon worship, as the title El, Most High, El Shaddai, that belonged to El Elyon, were given to Yahweh. We can also find Yahweh married to Asherah, who was originally his mother, just like this is found within Baal worship. Now, it's likely that some Baal stories were just taken and swapped the name Baal for Yahweh, which is also quite interesting. Now, Yahweh himself was merged in with El Elyon, as those who worship Yahweh could not solve all their problems through raiding and battle. And Yahweh was too harsh, so they had to mix it in with a loving, forgiving God such as El Elyon. Let's discuss Apis, a sacred bull deity that was worshipped by the Egyptians either as one sacred bull or multiple sacred bulls. Now, this being said, it was said that Apis was given the role by his goddess mother, Hathor, the role of being sacrificed and being reborn and being deified. And thus the Apis bulls that were sacrificed were viewed as symbolic for the pharaoh that passed away being deified. Now, Apis was also associated with strength, fertility, and vitality. So some pharaohs also would depict themselves or title themselves as bull or bulls. Now, the worship of Apis survived until the 5th century, to which it was outlawed later in Egypt by Christian rulers. Now, bulls were also sacrificed to the god Horus, who was referred to as the bull of the sky. And bulls were also sacrificed to Ra, and the Egyptians would call themselves the cattle of Ra. Let's discuss Enlil, who sometimes was referred to as the head of the Sumerian pantheon, though in some legends he inherited the kingdom of the gods from his father Anu, who was the original head pantheon godhead. Now, Enlil was also depicted as a bull, and was also described as a raging bull or as a raging storm within the story of him contributing to the flood. Now, Enlil also played a role within fertility rituals, as he was also considered a god of fertility, wind, air, and storm. Now, Enlil's symbol was not only depiction of a bull, but sometimes a horned helmet, and even a human-like deity wearing a horned helmet. Now, he was also considered extremely just. Now, what's interesting here with Enlil inheriting the kingdom of the gods, this is also similar with that of the Dead Sea Scrolls of Yahweh inheriting Israel from his father El Elyon. So the idea of gods inheriting titles or kingdoms from their fathers is nothing new. Now let's go discuss Kronos, a Celtic god, the god of the wilds, the Horned One, who was also depicted as a god with antlers, as a human-like being with antlers out of his head, or a helmet with antlers out of it. Sometimes he was depicted as half animal or half human, or depicted as a bull, as a serpent, or as a dog, or as other animals. Now, Kronos was also argued to be the god of the underworld and life and death and rebirth. Now, he was also a fertility god, a god of nature, a god of hunting and good luck and good travels, and no hunter would go hunting without first paying respect to Kronos. Now, early depictions of Kronos with antlers also gave rise to the images of Satan and the devil with antlers coming out of his head. Thank you for joining us here on this discussion. Please like and subscribe as it helps the channel grow, especially the likes. It helps the YouTube algorithm pick up on it. Peace and love.